Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learned quite a few things from, through, and from within human interactions, and having pursued and completed my master's in business administration and in clinical psychology, and having had the opportunity to work as a counselor and as a therapist over the last few years, I today wish to talk about how beliefs are formed and how they get reinforced, making it a large chunk of our subconscious and our unconscious. Now, in addition to that, as a context, I'd also like to add that beliefs are not just individual, they are also cultural. They are also within the family. They are also societal. They are also national. They are also religious. They are also on the basis of one's sex and gender and on one's caste, color, and creed. And in a way, they are both personal, which means individual, and they are also interpersonal, which means between two and many people, which in a way then logically also tells us that they have their stereotypes. Now, like I mentioned earlier, beliefs form the major chunk of our subconscious and our unconscious. Or if I can be loud enough to say that they are primarily all a part of our subconscious and unconscious, which essentially in Hindi means our avachetan and our achetan man. And since man naturally means mind, they are quite naturally a part of our subconscious and our unconscious mind. And then again, let's reconnect. If there are some common stereotypes with regards to what's good, what's bad, with regards to what's right, what's wrong, commonly shared amongst too many individuals, within the family, within the community, within the society, within the religion, within the nations, within the genders, within the sexes, within the colors of the blacks, of the whites, of the browns, and of everything in between, and within the caste, community, and creed. Quite naturally, it's also telling us that these are different sets from all of these places, sets from all of these parameters that I just mentioned, that form the building blocks of our mindset. And so in a way, these are the building blocks from these different aspects and parameters which come together, which join together to form our mindset, to form the underlying beliefs, the important word being underlying beliefs that reside in our subconscious and our unconscious. And if they reside in our subconscious and our unconscious, achetan and avachetan, or rather avachetan and achetan, quite naturally they are out of sight. They are in our blind sight of our conscious awareness, which is the chetan or the chetanman, the conscious mind. Now, since our subconscious and our unconscious is primarily out of our conscious awareness and is dictating 95 to 97% of our lives, of all of the choices that we make in life, of all of the decisions that we make or do not make in our lives, quite naturally it has a huge hold on us, which in a way should both be horrifying and at the same time surprising for us. Because it's like saying that there's a ghost entity inside of us which we're not aware of, but which still does exist and is dictating and is directing 95 to 97% of our life choices, of our life decisions, of our lives. And though it exists inside of us and amongst us, we still are unaware of it, we still are ignorant about it, which is where ignorance, though helpful for a fraction of a second or maybe few fractions of seconds, is really not helpful in the longer span. So in my understanding, when they say that though ignorance is bliss, knowledge is power, what essentially they are trying to say is that we need to get a little more aware, a little more knowledgeable about the ghosts that I had earlier referred to as the subconscious and the unconscious, which is where then the ghost entities, the not so visible entities, loosen their power, loosen their grip over us, or at least over our life choices and our life directions. Now, let's also take into consideration that our subconscious and our unconscious, once again re emphasizing, which makes a large chunk, 95 to 97% of our psyche, of our beliefs, of all of our decisions, of all of our life choices, is built on repetition and is functioning, is operating automatically. Quite naturally, it is not being very thoughtful. Quite naturally, it is not being very mindful. For like it's said, and like we all know, that anything that's practiced repeatedly quite naturally becomes a habit. And when it comes to habits, we really don't need to be thoughtful about most of them or about all of them. Also, habits, thereby our subconscious, quite naturally, quite logically also, is built on repeating what we have already done. And what we have already done quite naturally is indicative of the past. And thereby, once again, subconscious and thereby habits or vice versa is us replaying and repeating the past over and 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 over again. And in a way, it is the past that is constantly, mindlessly, thoughtlessly getting compiled one on top of the other, which is where we then intentionally need to become thoughtful and mindful about our habits and thereby our subconscious. If we truly want to have ownership of our life, if we truly wish to have some kind of changes, intentional changes, mindful changes, thoughtful changes in our lives, within ourselves, and within our relationships. If we wish to embody conscious living, we first need to become aware of the subconscious that is essentially dictating, ruling, and dominating 95 to 97% of our life choices, and our life decisions. The ones that we make and the ones that we choose not to make as well. Unfortunately, quite automatically, quite mindlessly, quite thoughtlessly, in a habitual, repeated, reenacted manners. Now, to understand the beliefs, the stereotypes, the most accepted norms which go on to form our subconscious and our unconscious, I had taken up this activity with a few people, both boys and girls, men and women, ranging from the age group of 16 to 72 years old. Now, somewhere unknowingly, or maybe some parts of it knowingly, I had not included the other genders in it, in this particular activity. And maybe since it happened more subconsciously and unconsciously, I still need to understand the reason. I still need to figure out the reason as to why those people were not considered in this particular activity by me. And so to understand where our beliefs come from, how they get formed, how they get reinforced, how they get reenacted, how they get played out, and how they become a part of our subconscious and our unconscious, I had asked these people to help me understand, to help me take note of all of the ideas, of all of the ideologies, of all of the thoughts from within our families, from within our communities, from within our religion or religions, from within our associations, from within our genders and our sexes, from within our caste and our communities, to help me take note of what makes, of what constitutes a good boy or a good girl, a good man, a good woman, a good wife, a good husband, a good leader, a good follower, and then also give me the ideas, the thoughts, the ideologies with regards to what constitutes, what makes for a bad girl, a bad boy, a bad man, a bad woman, a bad father, a bad mother, a bad leader, and a bad follower. Now, when it came to being a good boy or a good girl, the common stereotypes were, or the common ideas, the common thoughts that constitute our mindset, our beliefs, went something like this. And I have taken note of all of these on these sheets of papers, which I'll also be sharing in the screen. So some of them were obedient, compromising, docile, respectful, adjusting or adjustable, pretty enough, though not too much, not hot or sexy, not bold, sits and behaves well, polite, prim and proper, honest but not too much, not rude, does not hold strong opinions, i.e., opinionated, not too direct, helpful, not angry, not boastful, not arrogant, not moody, literate, padhi likhi, but not too much, nor too little, not wise, at least not within the family itself, undemanding, intelligent enough, not too much, at least within the family, to question the elders or to disagree with the elders. In a way, saying not too intelligent or smart or oversmart. Not too curious, understanding, does not question a lot, studies well, dresses in keeping with the family dictates and culture, patient, not rebellious, dutiful, not flirty, disciplined, not greedy, selfless, punctual, non promiscuous, does not use profanity, optimistic, not lazy, and much, much more. Were the adjectives, were the stereotypes, were the common thoughts and ideas in keeping with what makes a good girl. Now, when it came to being a good boy, some of the common thoughts and ideas were obedient, respectful, adjusting or adjustable, well behaved, polite, honest but not too much, not rude, helpful, not moody, literate and educated, not wise, at least not within the family, intelligent enough, not too much, at least within the family, not being over smart, not being disagreeable with the elders, does not question a lot, studies well, dresses smartly, especially during social occasions, patient, should not talk or share and express like a girl, in a way saying should not be girly, should not be vulnerable, should not cry like a girl, not rebellious, not angry, but at times can be acceptable. Strong, in a way stating not emotional. Disciplined, not greedy, punctual, optimistic, not lazy, and much, much more. Now, some of the ideas with regards to being a good friend. Listens, attentive, understanding, supportive, fun, open, blunt, or plus and gently honest as required, shares caring, not judgmental, available, good counsel, easygoing, relaxed, respects boundaries, reliable, mutuality, resourceful, can call out my bullshit, can hold secrets, trustworthy, non cheater, loyal, non demanding, strong, patient, non addicted, not somebody who backbites, will be with you, especially during the thin, while holding you accountable, not selfish, decisive, courageous, brave, adventurous, your chosen family beyond blood relations, someone you can be vulnerable with without being scared, adventurous, helpful, adjustable, foodie, someone who enjoys food, kind, good messenger, and much, much more. Now, when it came to being a good woman, some of the common thoughts, common ideas, common ideologies, in a way, stereotypes were obedient, compromising, docile, respectful, adjusting, adjustable, pretty enough, though not too much, not hot or sexy, not bold in her attire and opinions, sits and behaves well, polite, prim and proper, honest but not too much, not rude, not opinionated, not too direct, not loud, helpful, not angry, not boastful, not arrogant, not moody, literate, not wise, at least not within the family, undemanding, intelligent enough, not too much, at least within the family, to cross question and to disagree with the elders or most people in the family. Smart or curious enough, though not too much, to start challenging the established norms. Self sacrificing, not impulsive, not spontaneous. Understanding, doesn't question a lot. Studies well, dresses in keeping with the family and societal dictates, patient, non rebellious, dutiful, non flirty, disciplined, not greedy, selfless, punctual, non promiscuous, does not use profanity, optimistic, not lazy, and much, much more. And some of the commonly shared ideas, thoughts, and ideologies from 16-year-olds to 72-year-olds, boys and girls, men and women, with regards to being a good man. Obedient, self sacrificing, is allowed to be selfish at times when it's not inconvenient to the family. Provider, successful, should have status in the society, is loyal to the family and girlfriend or wife. But if he is not, it can still be understood. Financial provider, protector, chivalrous, macho when need to be. Strong, not vulnerable, honest, someone who doesn't talk and express a lot, and in a way is considered samajhdar, wise. Hardworking, not a people pleaser, controlled or controlling when need be. Leader, dominating, kind, gentle and firm, someone who can take a stand for the ones he loves and even bash the others in order to protect his loved ones if need be. Rough and tough, fast and furious if need be, smartly dressed, and much, much more. Now, some of the common thoughts, some of the common ideas, some of the common ideologies, and thereby are reinforced beliefs in our subconscious with regards to a good husband and a good wife went something like this: responsible, nurturing, safety provider, emotionally available, emotionally attuned, if and when possible. Physical safety, or at least can provide physical safety, should provide physical safety, inspiring, encouraging, thoughtful, successful, financially stable, practices what he preaches, has figured out life, level headed, loves my mother in very caring and attentive ways. This was said by some kids. Provider of basic necessities, backbone, hardworking, loves the child. Again, said by some children. Non hitter, should not be Hitler like, non manipulative, non abusive, understanding the kids, connected with the kids. Again, said by some kids. Understanding circumstances, supportive, courageous, and brave, has to be caring, trustworthy, confident, funny, strict, non domineering, not a one man army, and much, much more. And when it came to being a good wife, some of the thoughts were, which were commonly shared, went something like this: humble, obedient, dressed appropriately, cordial, accommodating, available, nurturing, good cook, caring, compliant, compromising, not bold, not assertive, not aggressive, sacrificing, does not have her own say, in a way not opinionated, well adjusted, not angry, docile, does not question a lot, follows husbands and family well, maintains the decorum and dignity of the family, ghar ki maryada, puts her family before her, does not rest till everything and everyone is taken care of, is frugal with money, patient, asks for permission for almost everything, confident enough, not too much, should not be demanding, should not have her boundaries, loyal, not ambitious, not rebellious, beautiful, loyal, responsible, attentive, punctual, good communicator, good cook, likes to travel, confident, emotionally attuned and present, good listener, understanding others, cleanliness, helpful, loving, and much, much more. Now, the commonly shared thoughts and ideas that went into making a good leader went something like this: assertive, ambitious, clarity, visionary, accountable, respectful, respectable, dependable, steady, risk taker, wise, smart, strong, courageous, brave, firm, gentle, supportive, honest, practices what he preaches, trustworthy, trust builder, trust keeper, efficient, effective, encouraging, and impactful communicator. I'll read that again: efficient, effective, encouraging, and impactful communicator, careful, well organized, thoughtful, hardworking, smart working, appreciative, wise, clever, not cunning, not domineering, not demeaning, and condescending, puts team before himself, transparent, does not take things for granted, team player, team builder, open, inspiring, encouraging, creative, aspirational, a friend when need be, a counsel when need be, a mentor as and when needed, willingness to learn and adapt, sensible, admits to mistakes and takes accountability for those mistakes, listener, planner, punctual, dedicated, interactive, practical, and yet emotionally intelligent, resilient, and much, much, much more. Followed by the ideas that made a good follower. blindly obedient, unquestioning, compliant, complacent, compromising, not rebellious, meek, weak, seeks approval and permission almost all the time, unassertive, non rebellious, unopinionated, submissive, polite, nice, someone who does jihuzuri, adhering to rules and orders, coward, unwise, unintelligent, not smart, dumb, unambitious, not a risk taker, always plays safe, spineless, and much, much more. And when this was being shared, it was quite interesting for me to note, for me to observe, that almost everybody associated with a leader and a follower, with a he, as a man, whether they were girls or boys, man or a woman, whether they were 16 or 17 years old, or whether they were 68, 70, or 72 years old. So, even when we are doing these simple exercises, it's important to observe those assumptions as well, to take care, to get thoughtful, to get mindful of those stereotypes, of those assumptions as well. Because unknowingly, even through this exercise, it quite clearly becomes visible, very obvious, that we still assume a leader as being a man, a follower as being a man. And that's not to say it's right or wrong, but had we gone in with the assumption of a female leader or a female follower, maybe certain things remaining the same, certain other things, or maybe very different set of things could have come up. And this is where, when we begin to observe our own assumptions, our own thoughts, our own ideas, our own ideologies, we start becoming aware of our own subconscious thoughts, beliefs, ideas, ideologies, the mindset, and thereby the operating system. It is where we become the observer of the self itself. It is where, when we begin to become that observer, we probably start learning the art of true detachment, the idea of attaching to our own subconscious beliefs, metaphorically to the ghost within all of us, that is operating through us, inside of us, 95 to 97% of the times, is something that we need to detach from, to have a healthy understanding of our own selves, to get aware of our own selves, to get truly knowledgeable of our own selves. Now, since the good has been established, quite logically, the bad also needs to be established. For as Martha Beck would say, we are all trying very hard, we are all working really hard, knowingly and unknowingly, to be the good boy, the good girl, to be the good man, the good woman, the good mother, the good father, the good leader, the good follower, which is given to us, which is handed over to us by our family, by our community, by our religion, by our color, by our caste, so that we are more acceptable, so that we feel a little more belonged and not like an outsider within our own families, within our own communities. And unknowingly, at times, it's also done at the cost of our own authenticity. At times, unknowingly so, unconsciously so, at the cost of our own genuineness, at the cost of we being unkind to our own selves. For unknowingly so, we are being very nice to all of these ideas that are called as good. So let's try and understand what are some of the common ideas and thoughts that go on to making our belief system, which lies in our subconscious, and thereby our subconscious beliefs, to understand what makes for a bad girl and a bad boy, respectively. Disobedient, defiant, rule breaker, questions everything, opinionated, curious, speaks her mind and her heart, changes her mind, uncompliant, non submissive, aggressive, assertive, angry, domineering, too confident, controlling, unapologetically independent, adventurous, strong, courageous, bossy, stubborn, non compromising, moody, doesn't study well or not interested in studies, or an average student, loud, provocatively dressed, unconfined, untamable, uncaring about norms and stereotypes, and much, much more. And the ones that makes for a bad boy are disobedient, defiant, rule breaker, questions everything, speaks his heart, changes his mind, uncompliant, non submissive, angry, aggressive, domineering, uncontrollable, unapologetic, doesn't study well, obstinate, moody, emotional, sensitive, not strong and courageous, unconfined, uncaring about norms and stereotypes, vulnerable, and much, much more. Now, what makes for a bad friend? Disloyal, uncaring, unsupportive, untrustworthy, dominating, cunning, condescending, hypocritical, constant blamer, unnecessary risk taker, somebody who cannot keep secrets, dishonest, rude, selfish, and much, much more. Now, what makes for a bad wife and a bad husband? Disobedient, defiant, speaks her mind, rebellious, assertive, too confident, disloyal, aggressive, ambitious, domineering, adventurous, be dash 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 dash, bossy, stubborn, obstinate, non complacent, non compromising, moody, courageous, uncompliable, untamable, loud, provocatively dressed, angry, rule breaker, hot and sexy, unconfined, uncaring about norms and stereotypes, questions everything, careless, carefree, curious, uncaring, demanding, seductive, one who wakes up late, one who sleeps and eats before everyone in the family, one who asserts her boundaries, one who prioritizes herself before her family, demanding, selfish, one who doesn't cook or even cooks well, go getter, not blindly loyal, has vices, and much, much, much more. Now, some of the common ideas, some of the common thoughts, and thereby our subconscious beliefs with regards to being a bad mother went something like this: uncaring, selfish, inattentive, unattuned, does not cook, bad cook, wakes up late, sleeps too late, sleeps before others, eats before others, angry, ambitious, doesn't take care of herself enough. But if she does a bit extra, then she's self engrossed. Cannot take a stand for herself enough, but if she does, then she is demanding and unadjustable and uncompromising. Coward, aggressive, assertive, but should not be within the family. Hitter, micromanager, passive aggressive, aggressive, screamer, shouter, not playful, too playful and not serious enough. Dishonest, impulsive, domineering, condescending, obsessive, somebody who always plays a martyr. Scorekeeper, in other words, keeps reminding others directly or indirectly of what all she has done and sacrificed for others. Not somebody who self sacrifices, most of the times, perfectionist, unkind, too gullible, somebody who cannot accept their mistakes, somebody who does not respect the family and the husband's family, disrespectful towards elders and youngsters, even when she's just being disagreeable. Hypocrite, emotionally unavailable, constantly shaming and criticizing, someone who values their personal image more than their kids, addict, and much, much, much more. Now, someone who's a bad father, irresponsible, cannot take a stand for himself, meek, weak, coward, hitter, uses profanity, self absorbed, controlling, liar, domineering, blamer, micromanages, screamer, shouter, somebody who shames, impulsive, does not trust, trusts too easily, workaholic, unwise, impulsive, emotionally unattuned, emotionally immature, afraid of emotions, egotistical, emotionally fragile, immature, condescending, obsessive, someone who plays like a martyr, someone who's a hypocrite, scorekeeper, in a way, someone who always keeps account of what he has done and reminds them of it constantly or regularly. Perfectionists, somebody who values their personal image more than their kids, unkind, uncaring, too gullible, someone who cannot accept their mistakes, someone who's got to be right all the time, hypocrite, emotionally unavailable, someone who makes you earn his love, constantly criticizing, someone who constantly compares you to others or your siblings, addict, dishonest, and much, much, much more. Now, someone who's a bad leader, blindly loyal, uncaring about his people, untrustworthy, impulsive, unclear, selfish, cruel, unkind, cunning, unambitious, derogatory behavior towards others, condescending, does not practice what he preaches, irresponsible, unaccountable, rude, rigid, unresourceful, does not have a vision, unorganized, ungrounded, impulsive, unsupportive, talks behind the back, hypocrite, constant blamer, attention hogger, unnecessary risk taker, dishonest, power addict, status addict, egotistical, inflamed ego, cares more about his image than his team, no integrity in words and in actions, and much, much, much more. And someone who's a bad follower, and the ideas with regards to that were commonly shared were responsible, in a way, somebody who's responsive to take a stand for themselves and others when need be, not a blind follower, not blindly obedient, skeptic, courageous, bold, assertive, untamable, uncontrollable, rebellious, speaks his mind and heart, willingness to face his fears, willingness to confront, ambitious, curious, questions authority, not easily bogged down, assertive, wise, does not trust blindly, doesn't feel blindly obliged, non-conforming, disciplined, mature, resilient, emotionally mature, unafraid of emotions, honest, daring to disrupt and break rules or traditions and practices if and when needed, not a hypocrite, emotionally and mentally, blindly unavailable. Someone who's not blindly loyal, someone who makes you think, someone who can think for themselves critically, and much, much, much more. And if we look at these assumptions, these suppositions, these stereotypes that have been provided to us like a food on the platter, which we have consumed, and it's become a part of ourselves, wherein we have quite literally embodied it like the food we do, and is now operating our subconscious and our unconscious, which we are not even aware of. Quite naturally, we are blindly following it, we are blindly obeying it, we are blindly adhering to them. And in a way, to a large degree, we have outsourced our intelligence and our wisdom. We are following the directives, the messages that have come from outside, have landed on our brains and our nervous system and in our sensory organs. For we've heard them, we've seen them, and we've even spoken about it in a repetitive manner over and over and over again till it has become automatic. Wherein after a point in time, it becomes unwise, it becomes unintelligent, it becomes mindless, it becomes thoughtless. And maybe it's time that we deliberately start taking up these kind of activities, quite literally, quite practically, noting them down so as to bring it up to our conscious awareness, into our eyesight, into our vision. Because unless we do that, unless we have that awareness about our operating systems, the ghosts that are operating our systems, 95 to 97% of the times, we will constantly be outsourcing our intelligence, our wisdom to those ghosts that lie beneath the surface of conscious awareness, which will then be directing and shaping our lives. Let's try and take up these kind of activities more often to become the individuals that more often than not, consciously, diligently, intentionally, is making choices for themselves and not on the automatic, habitual thoughts and ideas that have been passed, that have been traveling across genders, across sexes, across castes and communities, and across various age groups, as I just observed and shared in this video, from the age of 16 to 72, without it coming from a space of personal integrity, without it coming from a space of personal wisdom, without it coming from a space of personal discernment. Let's try and do these kind of activities a little more often. Not just to self-reflect, but to self-reflect on what is hiding underneath our conscious awareness, on what is present in 95 to 97% of that bulk that is operating within all of us, inside all of us. Let's try and become a little more knowledgeable about it. Let's start to throw some light over there so that it gets directly reflected into our eyesight and thereby our brain, to then be able to process it and to then be able to use it discerningly, with choice, with wisdom. And in my understanding, one of the best analogies or one of the best metaphors with regards to understanding our own beliefs and thereby our subconscious was narrated, was given through the movie PK, an outsider's point of view who looked at things very objectively, who even questioned as to why his name was whatever it was, who even questioned why was this person being labeled as a he and not a she or anything else. Why does a he dress differently than a she? Was there anything else beyond he and she? Why was there a language in the first place? What did that language communicate? Why did the meanings change in the language with regards to the facial expressions and with regards to its tonality? Why did an acha sound so different when it was used with a different context? Why did its meaning change so drastically from being thoughtful to being arrogant as well? Why was there no integrity with regards to what people thought, said, and did? Why was there a need for a name? Why did different cultures exist? And what did the symbols of each culture represent? Be it from wine or a coconut and its usage, and the symbol of wearing white and black in different occasions. Why was there a need for clothing? What did clothing symbolize? Why were people lying so often over here? And in a way making us question, why do we lie so often? Why is there a lack of integrity in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions? Why was God outside of people, and why was it represented in so many different ways? Why was it a he, or why is God a he and not a she or anything else? Why are people God-fearing and not God-loving? Why do they say that everything is fair in love and war, when love and war are diametrically two opposite things? So how can everything be fair in love and war? Why did so many people follow one person who was kind of an authority, had a very powerful position, and yet was not loving, not kind, and not compassionate? And why was this leader so relatable with God, wherein he was equally feared as much by his followers as they feared the God outside? Why did kids fear their parents? Why did parents call their kids as good kids or bad kids? And in my understanding, if we really revisit this movie at least a few times to truly start understanding its message, we can truly self-reflect on our own assumptions, on our own biases, on our own prejudices, and on our own belief systems, to then get consciously aware of them, to then be a little more curious, a little more courageous, and a lot more compassionate with ourselves and with others. Let's try and do that for ourselves, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.